papers, there's pretty much only one thing happening this morning, and that's Gillian Duffy, the star of the day, the granny from... Where's she from again? It's
Rochdale.
Rochdale, that's it. So anyway, poll latest Labour loses one voter. But of course the worry is that they might lose a little bit more than Gillian Duffy, that it could be more again because of the big gaffe he made yesterday. Just to kind of remind viewers, he was having a chat with this woman who was bringing up lots of issues, you know, the difficulty for pensioners to make ends meet, tuition fees, all of these big issues that are part of the debate. And she made a little mention of the influx of Eastern Europeans. Then when Gordon Brown got back into his car, he said, who is this sort of bigoted woman that was put in my path, you know? So anyway, we'll explain more on that as we go through, but this is the headline on the Daily Telegraph, Day of Disaster. And I think we also have the Daily Mail, demonised the granny who dared to utter the I word. Now, the Daily Mail is sort of a right-leaning paper, and immigration is an issue that all parties actually have been trying to avoid somewhat in this election, and now she may have placed it at the very centre of the election. And here we see another very prominent image from yesterday. This is Gordon Brown at BBC Radio 2, unaware apparently that he was being filmed, and as they played back the audio, which he didn't realise he was being, you know, he didn't realise it was being caught in his car, as it was being played back, he put his head in his hands in sort of despair. So they are the front pages, and if we move into the papers, we have the Guardian. She only nipped out for a loaf but left Brown in a right jam. And so they're obviously playing with words a lot on that. And I think this is the funniest aspect of it, really. She was just on her way out to the shop to get a loaf of bread, minding her own business, and didn't realise that Brown was in town, and found herself face to face with him and had a word with him. And the thing is, Brown thought it was all choreographed. He thought that she'd been put there by his minders as a sort of a way of you know, bringing up some issues for the cameras.
This happens in a campaign trail, that people are pre-vetted. Exactly,
happens all the time. And I think he was kind of unhappy with her profile. He kind of thought, oh, you know, she was a bit difficult. They could have found somebody a little bit nicer for me. But anyway, so that's that. And here you have the anatomy of the blunder. And so it's all a photo. You've got the microphone is number 3. And Susan Nye, she's in the centre of the photo there, the blonde woman. And she is one of his chief minders, one of his chief advisors. And when he got back into the car, he said, who was that bigoted woman? And who set it up? I bet it was Susan, you know? So he thought that Susan Nye had organised the whole thing and choreographed it, which she hadn't, poor old Susan. Now, if we move on to the next article, also in The Guardian, his problem is that this shows him acting not out of character, but entirely in it. That's Andrew Rawnsley. And of course, he says that Brown has been trying to maintain a cheerful mask, but on the fouler side of his temper. But apparently, from his point of view anyway, the true Brown was revealed in the car. If we move on to The Independent, Andy McSmith says that basically, you know, it shows the extent to which he was expecting everything to be vetted and choreographed the way all of these elections now are. He also says that Blair wouldn't have made that error because Blair always had a Labour Party microphone, and this was a Sky News microphone which he had. And the thing with the Labour Party mic is you could turn it off. And he also goes on to say that that image on BBC Radio 2 was another gaffe, basically, because he didn't realise he was being filmed. So just a nightmarish day for Brown. Now, the Daily Telegraph, Harry Mount says that, you know, it shows what a nervous wreck Gordon Brown is. Compare his pouchy oyster eyes, his porridge grey complexion with Blair's Bambi eyes and smooth skin. You can see who is more troubled by the midnight demons, he says. And we'll have a quick look at the Murdoch media, who are, I suppose, the bane of his life, basically, because Sky News, Murdoch owned, released the audio. And if we have the Sun, she's not a bigot, he's not clever. And so they basically say that you know, that she's a caring gran and that Gordon Brown was shamed. So they're being very, very tough on him indeed in the Sun. If we move on to the Daily Mail, she was magnificent, she was eloquent, and she spoke, I suspect, for millions. So a lot of the more tabloidy press is taking her side, saying that he was out of touch, he's two-faced, and all of the rest of it. So basically, the day from hell for Gordon Brown. Now, I think we might have a little bit of time to move on to some of the other stories. El País, the headline there is, the Greek contagion drives down the credit rating of Spain's debt. Now, of course, we can see the domino effect moving along. And we'll move back very briefly to the Daily Telegraph, where they're saying these credit rating agencies, should they just be done away with? This is Standard & Poor's, obviously called Greek's credit rating junk. And they go on to say, what's the point of them? They're often off the mark. Indeed, by signing top-notch ratings to essentially rubbish debt. The agencies also help to cause the initial misallocation of capital in the first place. So they're saying these credit rating agencies caused the bubble to blow up, and now they're causing everything to kind of spiral downwards. So basically, they cut confidence, and things become a self-fulfilling prophecy in the end. So very, very critical indeed of those credit rating agencies.
Well, we'll have more on those credit rating agencies with Douglas Herbert, in fact, in our business update, which is coming up in a little bit. But first, thank you very much indeed, James.
Thanks.
Let's get a reminder of the other main news headlines now. The oil slick disaster in the Gulf of Mexico worsens.